The opinions expressed in the podcast do not necessarily reflect those of the ASD-Andre Shouldn't Drink Podcast.
Welcome. You are now listening to the ASD-Andre Shouldn't Drink Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the ASD-Andre Shouldn't Drink Podcast. Today's podcast episode will be a little different from what you're probably accustomed to. To be fair, today's podcast episode was never intended to be a podcast episode in the first place. It was actually a full-length interview from a current investigation case that I've been working on. As in most of the cases that I take on, time is of the essence, and this case is no different. In today's podcast episode, we talked to two brothers from the Washington, D.C. area, Roja-John Stephenson and Ronell Stephenson. Since March of 2017, the brothers have been imprisoned in Ecuador for a crime they say they did not commit. So here's a little bit of the backstory. On March 11th, 2017, around 5 in the morning, the police raided the Stephenson brothers' farm where they ran a small resort and grew fruits and vegetables. The police said that the neighbors had reported that the brothers were growing cocaine. Oddly enough, the neighbors were with the police during the raid on the Stephenson brothers' property, and even stranger, they began digging in the dirt. The neighbors allegedly found two bodies buried on the property, unbeknownst to the brothers. The group accused the Stephenson brothers as being the murderers, and they were arrested. The Stephenson brothers were convicted and are currently serving a 34-year sentence in the Cárcel de Turí in Cuenca prison in Ecuador. There are so many twists and turns in this case. So many, in fact, I cannot see how these two brothers were ever convicted in the first place. This interview will hopefully shed some light and give you a lot more detail and context as to what really happened the night the two brothers were raided and arrested. I have to quickly give a huge shout out to DC-born Rob on YouTube. He has directly assisted Roja-John and Ronell Stephenson by bringing more attention and awareness to their story. Individuals like DC-born Rob deserve all the recognition for going above and beyond to help people. If you want to learn more about the brothers and their shocking story, please check out his amazing YouTube channel. Let him know ASD Docs sent you. With all of that said, let's get right into this podcast episode.
My full name is Roja-John Stephenson. I'm 29 years old. I have a business administration major with a minor in sociology from Washington and Jefferson College.
Hi, my name is Ronell Stephenson. I'm 39 years old. I'm from Washington, D.C., but prior to me coming to Ecuador to be with my brother with his project, I was in Baltimore and as well in D.C., repairing homes and selling.
Excellent. So we are here today because right now you guys are serving a 34 years in prison for a crime that you did not commit. You have now served 4 years in prison, correct?
Correct. 4 going on almost 5 years in March. In the summer of my sophomore year of college, I had the opportunity to partake in a volunteer ecotourism program in the north of Quito. So it was located in Ecuador through the University of San Francisco. I came down. I partook in the volunteer program for about a little over a month. I enjoyed the lifestyle that I saw out in Ecuador. I was really interested in the language and everything. And from there, it spiked my interest to return every vacation opportunity that I had to volunteer and see more of the country. Okay, so after the summer I spent in the north of Quito, I decided during the month of January 2013 to return to Ecuador, and I visited some different cities, Cuenca, Vilcabamba, and I let my father know once I graduated from college, I would be interested in starting an ecotourism farm in Ecuador. The currency was US currency. It's a beautiful country, and I was interested in learning the Spanish language. He decided to come down at the end of January 2013 to see the country with me. And when he came down, we met with a few real estate brokers that were in Vilcabamba, which are mainly English speakers, pardon me. And we traveled around the country. I ended up going to the Amazon jungle and finding a farm that was owned by a Canadian gentleman. When we arrived there with my father, we walked around the property. We saw the homes he already had built on the property, the fruit trees that were present there, and it was paradise. It was a beautiful place. It was perfect to start an ecotourism farm. My father was in agreement, and he said, once you graduate, you can come down here and we can take over this property. We can purchase it now, and you can start your life here once you get your degree. So from there, we purchased the property in the summer of 2013. I returned. I started cleaning up the property a little bit, purchasing animals, fixing the homes. And then from there, I had one more year until I graduated in 2014. And in 2014, I graduated in May. And a week later, I was on a plane coming down to Ecuador to start my new life.
How old were you when you decided to move to Ecuador?
When I decided to move to Ecuador, I was 19. When I graduated from college and actually moved, I was 21 years old.
And did you know Spanish?
When I moved down here, I knew very little Spanish. I knew my colors, my numbers, how to order food, how to get around a little bit, but I was not at the conversational level. So once I moved down in 2014, my dad moved down with me to spend a few months to help me get the property in order. There was a lot of repairs that needed to be done and everything. So started just getting the property put together, the homes, in a manageable living order that would be up to standards for having tourists to visit. At the same time, to help myself learn Spanish, I volunteered at the local high school teaching English. So that helped me get a little bit of interaction within the community and pick up on my level of Spanish at the time. That helped me build up my communication skills, to contract workers, to get people to help on the property, to show me how to plant, how to cultivate, how to take care of animals, being in the Amazon region. From there, at the end of 2014, I met Hiru, who was one of the victims. And when I met him, he was very, very helpful. He was a native to the area. He was willing to come onto the farm. He said, I'll show you how to plant different plants on the property. I'll show you how to clean up the property. And I hired him on the spot. He was very helpful. He ended up moving onto the property about a month later. We had a great time. He was really into music, so we both shared that interest. And my brother's also really big into music. So when my brother would visit, they would partake in music, talk about different styles of music and performing. From there, in 2015, with Hiru, I went to Ecuador Has Talent, and we did a little performance there where he performed his native music and dance, but he crossed it also with hip hop. So I was learning a little bit about their culture at the same time as I was learning about the land and developing my business that I was planning for the future. From there, also in 2015, I started getting big into the gym in the local town of Valor. I started working out, and I started competing in local bodybuilding competitions. And I won a few bodybuilding competitions on the national level. And from there, I started dedicating some time also to helping out in the local gym and just training some of the high schoolers that I was teaching English to, and just working with the local community at that point.
So you were integrating yourself within the community, and you were very well liked by the locals.
Correct. Many people knew me. They knew how I was. I was going into town on a daily basis, spending time at the gym, eating at local restaurants, just partaking in the local culture. I was a young man. I was living in the country by myself. I was getting to know everyone. It was my new home. From there, in 2016, I was presented with an opportunity to sponsor a candidate for the pageant for a carnival. So I partook in that. We put a float together. We developed a whole routine, a dance routine. We got one of the young women from the town. We bought her clothing, dresses, everything to partake in a pageant. And she represented my farm within the local pageant. So that was the beginning of my 2016 with the carnival. And every year my parents and my brother would come down and visit, see what progress I had on the farm, what projects I was working on. there was different projects between raising chickens, raising pigs, raising ducks. I had dogs, I had goats, I had cows, just different small projects as I was building up the property to be a self-sustaining farm, planting vegetables, planting fruit. There were already a lot of fruit trees that were previously there, planted from the previous owner, and we just added on to that, adding infrastructure to the property. Then we get into 2017. My brother came down prior to my parents arriving because I was given the opportunity from the Tabasco company to plant Tabasco peppers on about 6 acres of my property and to export Tabasco peppers to the United States. So my brother came down to help me on this project. We ended up having to build a greenhouse to germinate all the peppers, and from there had to hire a few extra workers to clear the property and start transplanting the peppers onto the land. My parents also came down for a small period of time, about a week and a half to 2 weeks, to visit, to see how the project was going and see how they could help it in any way. From there, they went back to the States, and that's when all the problems started. On March 11th, 2017, the police raided my property, saying that they were notified on an anonymous tip that I was cultivating a cocaine plantation and that I had police-grade weapons on the property. At that point, they tried to detain myself, my brother, and my girlfriend, who was also living on the property at the time, who was a local to the town. They detained all three of us. And at the same time as they're detaining us, the victim's family is on the property with shovels, digging up my yard, and just ransacking the place, going around the property. And what we later found out was the victim's family claimed to have found the two victims buried on our property. After this, the police took us off the property, and we were later notified that the victim's family looted our homes, ransacked our homes, stole the video cameras that were for security surveillance on the property. Then they burned the homes down. They killed our pets, our dogs. They cut their heads off. Our cattle, they killed our poultry, our pigs, everything. They destroyed the whole property. It was 4 homes on the property. They burned all 4 homes. They stole any property of value that was within the homes, any televisions, computers, everything, money, completely destroyed the homes. And
I have a quick question. When they raided your house, what were you guys doing? Where were you? Were you guys watching TV? Were you guys eating? All of a sudden, you hear a knock on the door. Can you take me through a little bit of the details as to how scary it was for all of a sudden all these armed men coming into your home and raiding it like they did? Can you take me through what time was it and stuff like that, the details of the raid?
Well, I'll explain that part because it was very traumatic for myself. Because at that time, I didn't speak any Spanish. Coming down, seeing my brother, just going to the farm, going for carnival, because February is the time to come down to Ecuador because it's carnival, it's festive and everything. So majority of the time I would come down in February, and then I'll go back to the States around like April, May, when the weather starts to warm up. Because, in February, April, March time, it's freezing and all the snow and everything on the East Coast. So the day, March 11th, they came, they kicked in the door, I would say at 3:00 in the morning, because we were out that night at a club, and we got back to the house about 1:00 in the morning, 12 midnight, 1:00, because here in Ecuador, especially in that town, Palora, the clubs don't stay open late. They stay open till about 2:00. So we got home about 1:00. So we sleeping, hear a big boom. At this time, let me describe the farm. The farm has 4 homes, right? It's a 125-acre farm. The house that we were detained at or arrested at was the first house on the farm, right? I don't know if you'll be able to put up pictures later or to kind of show what the farm would look like. So where we were located and where the bodies were discovered was by the first house, right? On this house and on this farm, the house that we were found in, that is like the work shed house, the entertain, the friends, and all that type of stuff. When you start to go further into the farm, about a half a mile to a mile, that's when you come across the family house, where it has the plasma screen TVs, the refrigerator, the stove, washer machine, dryer, and all of that stuff, right? That's the bigger house, much clean, and it sits on the hill because you can see Sangay Mountain, which is real popular right here in Ecuador. It's a volcano, right? And further up, we have a nightclub with the complete nightclub, coolers for the beers and everything, right? And then the third house is the guest house, where the family comes down. They don't stay at the family house. They don't stay at the club, or they don't stay at the little work shed house. They stay at the guest house, where my brother's wife was when the police came in that day. So now let me explain what happened when the police came. So when the police came about 3 o'clock in the morning, we were both sleeping, but I woke up first because I heard the door, a big boom. People coming in, ski masks and guns. Automatically, I'm not thinking police. I'm thinking we're being robbed or possibly about to be kidnapped, because this is like people in, you don't even see police on the uniform. They're not shining lights or anything, because we leave a porch light on, and in the hallway we leave a light on. These guys came in while we're in the bedroom. The bedroom is dark, but we fell asleep with the TV on. So these guys got their ski mask on, got their guns drawn. I don't understand what they're saying, so I have to wake my brother up. I'm like, get up, get up, get up, get up. There's some people in this house. Like, what the hell is going on? He's like, I think they're telling us to get on the ground. So he gets on the ground, and I follow his action because I don't understand Spanish. So I get on the ground, put my hands on their head and everything. They put us out into the living room, right? When we leave from the room that we were in, you can see a little bit of what's outside, because remember, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it's dark, you can't really see too much. So all we see is one vehicle. They tell us to lay face down, don't move. Now, we're laying face down for about a good hour, 2 hours, right? I'm asking my brother, like, yo, what's going on? What's going on? These people are paranoid because we're speaking in English. So they're getting upset, and they're like, hey, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. So he can't even translate or indicate to me what is taking place, right? The sun starts to come up now. I'm like, man, I'm freezing because, I'm in my shorts, T-shirt, laying on tile floors. We laying on tile, on stomach first, face first on tile floors. I'm like, man, I'm freezing, man. I'm like, I'm not about to keep sitting. I start to get Americanized. I start getting rude. I'm like, man, I'm not about to just lay like this, right? Because I don't know if these people are trying to kidnap us, rob us, or whatever. So I'm like, hey, I ain't going for this. I get up. I'm like, man, I need to put some clothes on, and I need to use the bathroom. I go to use the bathroom. When I get to use the bathroom has a window. I'm seeing the indigenous community is outside. And I'm like, this is odd. Don't pay it any mind. Come back, tell my brother, I'm like, hey, it's the indigenous community is outside, but I don't really know what's going on. He's like, I don't know what's going on either. We're sitting there, I say about 7 o'clock, the prosecutor comes in. The prosecutor comes in, and then I'll allow my brother to speak this part because he understood the Spanish.
So the prosecutor at the time comes in, and he asked me, do you know why I'm here? And I said, no, I'm not sure exactly why you're here. I don't even know what's going on. He says, you know why I'm here? I said, no, I don't know why you're here. He said, well, we had an anonymous tip that you guys had drugs and firearms on your property, and we found marijuana, so we're arresting you at this time. So at this point, I'm letting my brother know that they're going to arrest us because they found marijuana. And so they handcuff us. They start taking us outside, and a mob of indigenous people run up to us. They put my brother into the police car. Well, it was a white pickup truck that they were using as a police car, I should say. I'm still standing outside. The prosecutor keeps trying to ask me, do you know why I'm here? Do you know why I'm here? I said, no, I don't know why you're here. At this time, one of the indigenous comes up to me and assaults me. At this point, they rush me also into the pickup truck where my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, was also handcuffed in the back of the truck. They rush us off the property. As they're rushing us off the property, the police are saying to me, you guys know you guys are lucky. We saved your life. These indigenous would have killed you. They would have killed you. And I said, why would they have killed you? And they said, you should know why. At this point, I also explained that the prosecutor never read us our rights. They said we were being arrested for possession of marijuana, all three of us, myself, my brother, and my wife. At this point, they did not notify us that they had found dead bodies on the property. We were not translated our rights. We were not given our rights. I explained to him that my brother does not speak Spanish. He did not take heed of this. He did not care. It was not an issue to him. He could not explain to us why these indigenous were on our property. He basically just said, you guys are being arrested. You guys know what you did. We're getting you out of here. And took us off the property.
What was the prosecutor's name?
Sebastian Pacheco. Rodriguez Pacheco.
He's the one that got disbarred, correct?
Yes, he got disbarred after the fact for his actions on our property.
He was disbarred for what he did in our case, as well as what he's done in other cases. But our case was the straw that broke the camel's back. And they used our case to disbar him. But due to the corruption here in this country, the case just went dead. So right now, he's not a prosecutor, but he has a political seat in a small town. So he's weaseled his way back into a government role, a political role, where he can interfere with people's justice, if it's civil or criminal. He has a way to interfere with that, because we've had people tell us about his situation, and they said that this man likes to sue, like he likes to go to civil court and clean up money and disputes over land or money. Like that's his big field right there. But due to him not being able to practice law, he's still trying to work his hands behind the scene.
When you said that one of the indigenous people assaulted you, what did he do? What were his actions? Did he punch you in the face?
Yes, he came in. He punched me in the face while my hands were handcuffed behind my back, and two police officers held my arms.
Was he reprimanded? Was he arrested for assaulting you?
No, not at all. The police just told him to step back, and they loaded me up into the pickup truck and took us off the property and said we should be thankful that they saved our lives.
What happened next?
From there, the town that we live in is Pelora, and that's where the local police precinct and prosecutor's office is. But they did not take us there. They decided to take us an hour and a half away to another city called Macas. And so we're in a police car for an hour and a half driving, believing that we're being arrested on marijuana charges, haven't been read our rights, don't know what's going on, don't understand why people are on my property, just running amok. We finally get to Macas. I'm asking them what's going on. Can I get a phone call? And for being denied our phone call, they said, first we need to finish writing our statements. At this time, the SWAT team that was there, they wrote their statements, and the head of the SWAT team wrote a statement, and the police that were not on the property at the time of the raid came in and copied his statement and filled in their names. From there, I continued insisting that we needed a phone call. We needed to talk to the embassy to let them know that what was going on, and this was a Saturday. So about after 2.5 hours of insisting, they finally said, you can call the embassy. I reached out to the embassy. I called them. I said, hey, I've just been arrested with my brother. We're in Macas, Ecuador right now. We don't know what's going on. We haven't been read our rights. Can you guys provide us a translator? We're not understanding what's occurring right now. They said the best they can do for us at the time is they can notify our family of what is going on, and they will make note that 2 Americans have been detained. But at that time, the prosecutor nor anyone else in the government of Ecuador had notified them that they were arresting American citizens, so there was not anything else that the U.S. Embassy could do at the time. From there, they hung up, and our only hope was that they would truly let our parents know that we were being detained, and we didn't know why. From there, the police came in. I continued asking what's going on. I said, we don't even know our rights and we've been arrested. They said, yes, we're going to read you your rights. I made it clear to them that my brother does not speak any Spanish and we were going to need a translator. From there, they became a little disturbed, a little upset about the situation. They said we were being difficult with them due to me not translating to my brother at that time. I said, I'd only been in the country about 2.5 years. I'm not at the point to be translating to anyone in this type of dire situation what is going on. From there, they said, okay, we'll bring a translator in. They leave and come back about half an hour later with one of the officer's wives. She came in and they explained to her that she was needed to translate to us our quote unquote Miranda rights and why we were being detained. She made it clear to them at that point that she was not comfortable translating to us because she is not a notarized translator or a certified translator within the court system. And they pulled her aside and tried to insist that she translate our rights to us. At that point, she came over and we said, we can call the embassy so you can talk to them for you to feel more comfortable if you can translate. She said, I do not feel comfortable translating in this type of situation, and I will not do the translation for you. At that point, the police became more upset, and they said, we'll just tell you in Spanish what it is and you tell your brother. I said, no, I will not accept that. We need to be provided a translator. At that point, they said, it doesn't matter either way. They took her away. They loaded us back up in the pickup trucks to take us back to Palora, to the prosecutor's office. So they load myself, my brother, and my wife into the pickup truck to take the 1.5-hour drive back to Palora. By the time we're getting back to Palora, we have to pass my farm. As we're passing my farm, we see smoke coming out of the property. I asked one of the officers, well, what's going on? Why is there so much smoke coming out of my property? At that point, they said the indigenous have looted and burned all your homes to the ground. They've stolen or killed all your pets and animals. They've completely ransacked your property. I said, but weren't police left on the property to secure the quote-unquote crime scene? They said, yes, but we only left 2 officers and there was over 100 indigenous people. We could not control it. And for the safety of our officers, we just allowed them to come onto the property and do as they pleased.
The indigenous people, they knew who you were. You were really involved within the community, correct? So these people, many of the individuals knew who you guys are. Where was your friend in all this, the musician?
He's one of the victims that we later found out was murdered.
How long hadn't you heard from him?
It'd probably been about 4 or 5 months prior to that I heard from him. After he'd stopped working on my farm in mid-2016, I would always see him in a town occasionally when I would go shopping or go to the gym. Always a friendly relationship, a great friend. He had helped me so much on the property. So it was always friendly, always happy to see him, always jovial. But it probably been about 4 or 5 months that I hadn't seen him.
So the indigenous people are burning down your homes, killing your pets, just looting.
Yes.
No one defended you guys? There wasn't one indigenous person that was on your side? Or in my mind, I guess my question is, why were they so angry? They knew something was there. They were angry about something, but no one knew what exactly. You didn't know at the time exactly why they were so angry at you two, correct?
To our knowledge, the only person that was aware of what was present was the victim's father, as he later came out to say that he knew his son was on the property. And he was the one that led the indigenous people there.
And now, this is the part that is crazy with this, because these are the facts that came out in trial. The victim's father, our friend Hiru, says that he was on the property 2 hours to 3 hours prior to the police arriving with family members with shovels, right? Now, when the police came there, they never told us that they were looking for dead bodies. They said they're looking for drugs and guns. We were originally charged with guns and drugs. We did not get charged with murder of the two gentlemen until 5 to 6 days later. Why? In this country, when the prosecutor does not have evidence of a crime, a family member of the victim or a close relative or friend of the victim can bring a case against you. And by that person bringing a case against you, the prosecutor now has to assist in the process. So the whole time the prosecutor was, I would say, never told that there was dead bodies there. Because if he was told that there was dead bodies there, it would have came with a warrant to search for dead bodies. We would have been charged with murder the first day of the arrest. We wouldn't have been charged with felonious drugs and guns. The 2 lives were lost. That's the most important thing. We were not charged. They waited 5 to 6 days later to charge us with that after the victim's father tried to get money out of the situation. Because the way murder works here, along with any other what they call flagrant crimes or victim crimes, is like assault in the States. You get in an argument with your girlfriend, she calls the police, you get arrested, she can now go to the prosecutor and say, you know what, it was just a misunderstanding, and drop the case. Here in Ecuador, it works the same way if the family brings a case towards you. So the father comes and asks us about money prior to us being charged with murder. We deny because we're like, we did not commit murder. This guy was our friend. We don't know who the second victim is, and we have nothing to do with this. He says, okay, doesn't come back. In a few days, we get served within the prison that we are being charged with murder. He wanted money to drop the case. He wanted our land to drop the case.
How much money was he asking for?
At that time, it was $1 million. He wanted $1 million, and for us to not return back to Palora, which is where our farm is located. The reason he did not want us to return back is because that whole community, due to us being in this situation, that whole community knows that he has something to do with the loss of those 2 lives. The whole community is intimidated by this gentleman because that small town only has about 5 police officers, 6 police officers. So he lives about 45 minutes into the jungle. They come out, people are so intimidated by black magic and people coming out robbing and stealing. Because in that town where we live, this is not a poor community. This is a community of people from Russia, Canada, Australia, and they're buying big land. We had 125 acres. They had other people with 200 acres, 300 acres, doing pitahaya, cows and all of that. These people had to stop due to people coming from the indigenous community, robbing and stealing and running back. Ever since this situation has happened to us, that town crime rate has gone through the roof because the people in that community have seen that justice did not work. Right now, just the other day, about 2 weeks ago, two family members raped their cousin, got her high off of drugs, and buried her on their family's farm. Only one person was arrested. So what is taking place over here in this country in our situation was one that took place in the trial. The anonymous tip that said that we sold drugs and had guns said that we were Americans. We learned the law due to the judge in the trial. The judge in the trial said, in an anonymous tip, you guys knew that these guys were Americans. Why wasn't there a translator present when the warrant was served? One violation. This is what the judge says is in court, not even our lawyers. The judge says this. Why wasn't there a translator because you knew you were serving the warrant. You know the law of Ecuador says you have to have a translator present. Why wasn't that done? Secondly, why was it the family was there at 3 o'clock in the morning? The SWAT team came at 5 in the morning, and the prosecutor showed up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Why in pieces? Why didn't everyone show up together? These are the things that the judges are asking, because within the trial system here in Ecuador, when we went to trial, there's 3 judges. There's no jury. There's three judges, the victim's lawyer, the prosecutor, and our defense team, right? So when we start the trial process, the judges tell us, like, you have the right to cross-examine people as well. Not only do your lawyer have the right to speak, you guys have the right to speak as well. But we don't speak Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish at the time. The translator that I had, oh my goodness, he didn't speak any English. It's just that he had a 6-month visa. He goes to visit family in America and come back. So the translators that were provided for us during our trial process were not even certified. Completely terrible with the defense. Also, that what took place within the trial that was heartbreaking. Hero and his girlfriend had lived on the farm with us. We're very good friends with my brother, right? We have myself, my father, my family. Whenever we come down, we will bring clothes and give to them, because there have been so much of a assistance and help to my brother, because we don't have any family here in Ecuador. In the trial process, we got to see the testimonies. It's hard talking about this right now. It's very painful. The girlfriend did not go to the prosecutor and say that or give a testimony or a statement until after they discovered the dead bodies. She says on one day that the boyfriend was coming to see us to buy drugs, right? The father of the victim, he didn't like that narrative. She goes back and says that the boyfriend was coming to the farm because my brother owed him $200 from 3 years ago, right? She goes now and change, because they realize that doesn't make any sense. Why would you wait 3 years to collect a debt of $200? She goes and makes a statement that he just went over there just to smoke marijuana with John and his brother, right? The prosecution sees these 3 different statements on 3 different days, choose the best statement that fits for their case. The best statement that they fit for their case, they go with that we owed the boyfriend money, because the victim's father, he goes into the news and says that we owed his son money, and the news reporter asked him, so didn't your son make a complaint about this? He said, yeah, he made a complaint and he got his money. He got his money, so that situation died. So no one understands why we would kill these guys. We have no motive, no reason, no nothing. So within our case, we had video cameras on the property, burnt down. We had receipts to prove that we were not on the farm because we were out with our family, burnt. I had an iPhone 7 at the time, stolen, because that has GPS on it. My passport, my brother's passport, ended up on the internet. Never was in evidence. When we were in trial, our lawyer says, "Where's those passports?" The prosecutor's looking and cannot find it. But our passports was all over the internet saying that we were Brazilian, Jamaican hitmen here in Ecuador killing and selling drugs. Because what they tried to do is skew. They didn't want to say Americans at first. They wanted to skew the image so that we don't have the American support. We don't have the big media watching. Because the big media of Ecuador, they covered the story one time. Once they realized what was taking place, they stepped away. The news broadcaster, he says, presuntamente, dos extranjeros presos por asesinato en Polo. A news person says, presumably twice, with doubt, because he understands what takes place in this region. So everyone was in doubt. We didn't understand what was taking place because everything was happening so fast. The guns that they charged us with, they had us go to trial within a week. It was a blessing that the guns were artisanal. They didn't work. And the judge said, since these guns do not work, you guys are not in possession of firearms or selling firearms. Dismiss our case. The victim's father goes in the news, says that the judges are taking money under the table, that they're corrupt, they need to be changed. The police needs to be changed. We go to court for our drug case. The judges say, you guys do not have an investigation on these guys for drugs. You don't have any pictures. You don't have any testimony of anyone saying that they purchased or seen these guys selling any drugs. Case dismissed, given reasons and classifications. The victim father goes again in the news and says, the judges here in this town are corrupt. They are taking money under the table. How could they say that these Americans are consumers when they know that they are drug dealers? He does that and he says, when we go to court for the two murders, for the two dead bodies, if we do not get justice, we are going to seek Schwar justice. That right there was a threat and an intimidation towards the judges.
What is Schwar justice?
Schwar justice is, from what we have learned, is if you are in the indigenous community, or if you are taken back to the indigenous community, they can work under their law. So if it's theft, which we have seen, they tie people up to a tree and the whole community come with sticks, rocks, and beat the person. If they die, so be it. That's how they do it. And no one goes to prison for it. So their whole thing was, if they couldn't get Ecuadorian justice, they would do their indigenous Schwar justice. If it was a situation of kidnapping the judges and taking them back to their community, or when we go free, they would kidnap us and take us back to their community and seek justice. Our lawyers, as well as the embassy, they said, just be as quiet as possible, because we all know that you guys did not do this, and possibly in the middle of the night, you guys will be let free, which you will not be able to come back and live a life normal here in Ecuador, which you will go free. So the whole media aspect, we didn't know how much the father was in the media, because when we originally got arrested, we didn't have any contact with the outside world. We didn't really trust anybody. They're telling us inside of there, like, be careful who you eat from. Make sure you watch your food. They may try to poison you guys inside of there because they know that you didn't do this. So if they can kill you in the prison, you know, everything is done. They just take your land and everything is over with. So we were very leery, our back to the wall, not trying to communicate too much. Then we got transferred from out of that prison to another prison. We got to have a little bit more insight on what was on the internet, but still not to the extent that we see now, because we would just hear possibly 1 or 2 news clips. But when we see now, this man had went into the news at least 15 times, 15 different news occasions, attacking the judicial system, attacking them, and painting a bad image on us, saying you guys are going to let these criminals, these killers, these drug dealers, this, all about us into the news, you know. And our lawyer, when we spoke to our lawyer about it, our lawyer said, no, that's not a good idea to go into the media. Let's work under the table, be quiet. Everything is going to work out fine. And we believed them because we won the gun case. When we did the drug case, it was the same 3 judges that was present in our drug case. They were involved in the murder case. So when we won the drug case, which was the reason for them entering the property, our lawyers was under the impression like, hey, the murder case should be a no-brainer because they were not allowed to be on the property. They didn't have a warrant. So for us to do this murder case, there was no grounds to be there, and then there's no evidence to prove that you guys committed the murder. You know, it came up in trial that DNA, things of these natures were found and deliberately not tested. Deliberately not tested because it would prove our innocence.
The individuals that discovered the bodies, the 2 bodies, were not the police, correct?
No. The individuals that discovered the bodies, the individuals that transported the bodies were not police. They have it's public because it's in the news. They have pictures of the family members digging or attempting to dig, because I don't know what took place back there, because we have yet to go there to see what's going on. So I don't know if when they came in at 3 o'clock in the morning, they dug the hole, and then when the prosecutor came, they came and dropped the bodies. Because the main situation is it's hot in this country where we were located. If those guys died in that location, all they had to do was a luminol test in that location. They did not do it. They purposely did not do it. If those guys' bodies exploded on our land and was buried there in our land for over 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long they were saying they were there, the DNA is in the hole. They didn't do that test. They go and do a luminol test after the houses were burnt down and go inside of the house and start doing luminol tests and saying, yeah, we're seeing traces of DNA possibly. But don't test it. They present this in trial, but don't test these things. They're like, yes, we're seeing the black light is going off. This can possibly be DNA. Yes, it could possibly be DNA. The animals that you guys killed on the property, the gasoline that you guys sprayed all over the place to burn the place down, you know, so it's a lot of DNA on that property because there was a lot of blood loss with those animals. Because we had over 6 dogs, talking about pit bulls, Great Danes, boxers, Dobermans.
All the animals were killed.
All of them. Pigs, chickens, fish, tilapia, ducks, dogs, cats, goats, everything.
Let's take a step back to going back to what John was explaining. You guys are still arrested. Are you guys handcuffed in the truck? And you guys are going back being transported to the other prison, going back, and you need to pass by your property. You see that there's smoke and they're burning them down. Can you take me what that process was like as you're passing by? And you ask them, they said, we only left 2 police officers. That's where we left off before you started going into a lot of the evidence, which I'm very glad you did, by the way. That was this is stuff that no one knows about, no one talks about in the media, so I'm glad you're explaining that in detail. But can you take me back when you're passing by? What happens next?
The police, where I'm asking the police what's going on, why is there so much smoke coming out of the property? They're explaining to us, basically, as soon as they had gotten us off the property in the morning, that the indigenous completely looted the property, took anything of value that they desired, and then when they got everything they wanted, loaded up their trucks or were able to carry things out of the property on their motorcycles, they burned down every single home. I asked the police, why didn't they stop them? What was the reason for allowing them? They said, well, we only left 2 police officers there, and there were so many indigenous, there was nothing they could do. I asked, if they knew there were so many indigenous, why would they only leave 2 police officers? And they said it's not their responsibility to protect my property. From there, they take us back into Palora. This is about 7, 8 o'clock at night now. And as we're arriving to the prosecutor's office, we see a police bus, which is
I'm sorry to interrupt. You said 8 o'clock at night, PM, AM?
PM now.
Oh, so the next day, this is a new day completely, and then they're transporting you back.
This is the same day. This is the same day. So everything started at 5 in the morning from the raid, then from them taking us to Macas, us calling the embassy. Now they bring us back at 8 p.m. at night to Palora to finally give testimony at the prosecutor's office. So this is about 16, 18 hours later. We haven't slept. We haven't been checked into a prison yet. We've only been in police precincts.
Handcuffed the whole time, mind you.
No food. The only phone call was to the embassy, which was of no help to us at all. No translator up to this point. This is still my rudimentary Spanish at the time. Getting information out of the police, trying to explain to my brother, my girlfriend, just completely scared out of her mind, not understanding anything that's happened, even though she's a local. Doesn't understand the pretenses of the situation, why they're doing this to us, why we're being arrested, why we're being whisked around. So from there, we are arriving to Palora at about 7, 8 p.m. at night. We see a police bus in front of the prosecutor's office. And the police bus is completely full of police officers. And as soon as we're starting to pull into the prosecutor's office, they unload. I asked the police, why are there so many police officers here? They made it clear to us it was for our safety after what they saw the indigenous people do to our property, that they were concerned for our well-being. We're now taken upstairs into the prosecutor's office and told that we're going to be needed to give statements on the drugs and the guns. They also bring in a local translator who spoke some English, but not much at the time. And at the same time, she said from the beginning she was very scared to be a translator due to her knowing what the indigenous people were capable of. She didn't want to be involved in this type of situation.
And she lived in the town, so her name would have been in all of our documents as helping us, not as being against us. So she didn't want too much dealings with that, because she also had owned farmland, because she has family that's in America. And she even told us, like, I don't want to create a problem where I go out to my land, which is close to these communities, and I end up missing.
So she was afraid of retaliation for translating for you gentlemen.
Yes, exactly. So at that point, we were presented to a public defender, and a local lawyer from town that we knew was also present due to all the commotion that occurred that day at the prosecutor's office. And they basically explained they're going to ask for you guys to give statements and just give the best information that you have to your knowledge. From there, they asked us about if we sell drugs and so on and so forth, and I made it very clear to them that we do not sell drugs. Then the questions started getting very weird, because they started asking us about specific dates where we were located. And we told them certain dates we were with our family as our parents were recently in the country, where we had been, what was going on. After they take my statements, they call my brother out. And my brother can explain once they started questioning him to give his statements.
Yeah, with that part, with me giving my statements, it wasn't too difficult, because the translator, she was able to translate a little better compared to the translator that we first came across in Macas. So she was able to get the information across. The only issue that came about was the prosecutor's secretary, along with him, they did a little trick on me. They took out a picture with like skeleton and bones. Like surprised me, just threw do you know who these people are? Man, I fell out the chair. Cause I'm like, man, what is this? What are you guys doing? They're like, man, these two skeleton bodies right here were found in your on your farm. I'm like, man, there's no way that was found on our farm. I'm like, so what are you saying? Like, are we charged with murder? They said, no, you don't have to give a statement, or you don't have to say anything about this. I'm just showing you what we found on you guys' farm, and left it as that. So we leave out from there. They take us to a judge, because what happens in this country, you have to be arraigned or go in front of a judge and be charged within 24 hours. If you do not get charged within 24 hours, I guess your case gets dropped, right? So if we were to try to prolong the process at the prosecutor's office, and we could have touched 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning again, the case would have got thrown away. So we went over to the judge about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. The judge orders preventative lockup for the drugs and the guns, right? They don't present anything about dead bodies found, no nothing. Like, all of that is just quiet, right? So from there, they transfer us right back to Macas, because that's where the prison is. And we got back to that prison about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And they admit us into the prison. And when they admit us in these third world countries, they don't provide you with anything. So when we got in there, we were sleeping on the floors, laying on the floor. There's no toothbrushes, no mattresses.
Not put in a cell, anything. You're thrown into a unit in the dark, in the middle of the night. You're seeing cell doors locked, and you're just told, make yourself comfortable. We'll be back in the morning. So we're just standing in a hallway within a unit in a prison with multiple cell doors locked. No bathroom, no one present. And we're told to make ourselves comfortable. No mattress, no bed. The only option is the floor.
While we were detained, the only thing that, from what I was learning from what my brother was telling us, was that the police was informing us that the indigenous is framing us. That we getting railroaded, right? Because the SWAT team that was there first before the police came, they acknowledged that the indigenous people were present before they got there. The issue is they never made the SWAT team present in our trial. They didn't speak or anything. These guys wrote up their statements on their tablet, and then when the local police came in, they came in and just copied it verbatim. I'm talking about not one word change, like copied and paste for 6 or 7 different police officers. Not one police officer writes a statement that he discovered the body. Not one police officer writes a statement saying that he dug up the body. Not one police officer says that they transported the bodies. This family created false statements by saying that we're drug traffickers and gun traffickers. They did that. They, working with this prosecutor who is now disbarred, figured out the loophole to get the warrant. Because they originally tried to get the warrant in the bigger city of Macas. They were denied. They came to Palora, worked with the same prosecutor that was disbarred, and said, listen, I can get a warrant because you said that they are selling drugs and they're selling guns. I can believe it because they're Americans, right? They do that. the prosecutor now informs the victim's family at the time of the warrant. The prosecutor says, I'm going to be present at 7 o'clock. The victim's family takes it upon themselves to be on the scene of our farm 4 or 5 hours earlier, or possibly even longer. Because remember, I told you we went to the club that night. So for all we know, they could have been on the farm since 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock on our farm, getting their plan together. This family discovers the 2 victims, transports the 2 victims, bring a case against us for the 2 victims, and it's only the victim's family is the alibis for saying that they seen or spoke to their family members, and they all told them that they were coming to our farm. Not one outside party. The next issue that took place, the bodies were found naked. The original missing report said that these guys were 16 and 17 years old, right? Hiru is close to my brother's age, right? I know he's close to, because he went out drinking with us. He went to the strip clubs with us. He's an adult. The other gentleman, I do not know. They said that these guys were young teenagers. Once the bodies were discovered, the family, the victim's father and the girlfriend, out of nowhere magically has these guys 2 IDs and turn it into the prosecutor. And now their real ages come out, that they are 21 and 26 years old. So where was these IDs before? The IDs were not found with the victims. The victims went missing with on a red motorcycle. Till this day, they have not found this red motorcycle. On our farm, they ain't find a screw, not even a gasoline oil to say that, you know what, the motorcycle was here one day. Nothing. And now this is a motorcycle, I think it was like a 250. I'm talking about a big motorcycle, not a small little dirt bike. This is a big bike. Gone missing. But the issue is that the police, the prosecutor, have never gone into this community to do an investigation. Then they asked for them to do a DNA test on the cadavers. They tell the family to bring the toothbrushes and DNA. The police didn't go to the house and collect the evidence. They're telling the family, bring it to us. They're so scared to go there and do their jobs. In the autopsy, they speak about the bodily harm, right? The victim's father is in the news on the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, talking about all sorts of damage that had took place to these guys' body. On the 15th, the prosecutor that was disbarred goes in the media and says that we have to get a bomb specialist to do an autopsy report on these bodies because their bodies have been decomposed or decomposition so badly. So how is it the father knows on the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th that allegedly these guys were stabbed, that they were raped before autopsy report was taken out? This father is in the media saying that this type of crime is a crime of psychopaths, sociopaths. These guys were mutilated, found naked. Yes, thank you for saying all of these things in the media, because you know what took place or you were involved in what took place. Because you said that they were found naked. Why was the IDs presented 5-6 days later? And if you had the IDs in your custody the whole time, why didn't you present that to the police saying that, hey, my son is not 16 or 17 years old, he's 26 years old? When they put out their missing persons report paper, they didn't say call the police, they say call the family. Why call you? It's an emergency. But they feel They had to control the whole situation, and they did control the whole situation. They controlled the evidence, they controlled the media, and they intimidated the judges. To the point that when we appealed it, when they found us guilty on the murder, they gave us 24 years. The same 3 judges that was on our drug case. These same 3 judges, when we appeal it, they are in our appeal. Our lawyer files a contamination of evidence, contamination of judges to get these judges removed. They deny him. Due to him asking to get them removed, they say, you guys don't deserve 24. You guys deserve 34 years and 8 months without explanation. They didn't give us an explanation why they gave us 24 years. And then when they went up 10 years and 8 months, they didn't give us an explanation. All behind intimidation in media and spite. If we didn't appeal, we would have 24 years right now.
Immediately when just take me through the details of the trial. So how long was the trial?
The trial, this is the funny part about it. The way they railroaded us, the trial was 2 days, right? But this is how they did the trial. This is how terrible it is. They did the trial in December, started the trial in December 12th or December 13th, right? Started it from about 7 in the morning, went to about 5:30 in the evening. Suspended the case until January 14th, 15th, like a month away. Our lawyer said that, hey, this is not constitutionally right. This is illegal. You cannot do that. You are going over the continuance period. The judges said, don't worry about it. This is what we're doing. Boom, left out. The second part of the trial was just complete railroading. It was just police testimony of them lying. And then the following day was deliberation. And they gave us 24 years.
Immediately, what was your reaction, both of you, when they laid down the sentence?
At the time, I couldn't grasp everything. Because, I'm still going through the translator. I'm waiting for my brother to finish speaking with the lawyer to hear what the lawyer has to say. So once all of that, it didn't set in until I got back to the prison. Because that day, our mother came down by herself. Our dad was supposed to come down, but he was having passport issues. Our family had purchased tickets for us to go to the Philippines. Like, we're going to do a nice vacation. So, we were so planned and ready to get up out of there. When I got back to the prison, I just broke down and cried. Once my brother explained what was going on. The warden of the prison at the time, she cried with us. She was like, man, I can't believe they did that to you. Because she was an ex-judge. And she said, man, I know those judges. I can't believe those judges did that to you guys. After hearing them say for so long, they don't have a case against you guys. There is no case. There is no case. You guys are going free. The warden, I'm talking about, we don't know this lady no longer than a month. This woman was crying with us.
What happened to your now wife? She was your girlfriend at the time, John. What happened to your wife?
She was pregnant at the time, so the whole time she was able to fight the case from the streets. And at the time of the trial, she had just given birth to my daughter a month prior. And at the trial, they just said that they had no reason to believe that she could be implicated in the crime, and she was found innocent. Her alibi was justified in the judge's minds, but our alibi had no merit.
And not only just that, the family went and created such a nasty picture for my sister-in-law. They went and said that, we had these guys kidnapped and held hostage, and she was cooking the food and bringing the food to sustain them. That's why she was in the case. They were like, she was involved as far as facilitating food and cleaning up because she's seen these guys there.
Since sentencing, how long have you guys been in an Ecuadorian prison?
Since sentencing, it's been 3 years and some months. But all the way up until trial, we were detained in Ecuadorian prisons. We were not allowed to receive bail or bond. They put a lien on my property. Up until this day, I can't sell my property, but I must pay taxes. They put a lien on all my bank accounts in the country. So it's been almost 5 years that we've been in the Ecuadorian prison system, but a little over 3 years since being sentenced.
What was the reaction of your parents?
Complete devastation. They couldn't believe it. They believed in our lawyers. Our lawyers told them there was nothing to worry about. They saw the first two trials, how the judges deliberated, and it seemed very rational. And then in the last trial for the murder, it was a complete 180, a complete change up on how the judges had previously acted in other cases and how they deliberated. They believed in the embassy. The embassy said, your lawyers seem like they know what they're doing. They have everything under wraps. There's no evidence against your sons. There's nothing to worry about. They just have to go through the legal system and they should be going home. It was complete devastation. They were lost for words. They didn't know what to say to us.
Do you still have the same lawyer from trial as your lawyer today?
No, we've changed lawyers since then for multiple reasons. One of the reasons we changed our initial lawyer after the trial, we came to find out after the fact that he had previously been a prosecutor, and he was a prosecutor against the victim's father. And the victim's father had previously been indicted for kidnapping and murdering of 2 Italian citizens that were visiting Ecuador. He's also been indicted for multiple fraud cases. And our lawyer at the time was the prosecutor when he was being indicted in these cases, and the charges would seemingly just disappear and be dropped. Our lawyer at the time, he never made it clear to us. He never explained to us. We knew that he was previously a prosecutor, but at the time he was defending us, he never told us that he was a prosecutor in the cases against the victim Hiru's father.
So you never knew he was ever connected with the victim's father?
Never knew. It wasn't until after we released him as a lawyer.
And how did you guys find out? And then when you guys did find out, did you confront him?
We found out through other inmates in the prison.
Did you end up confronting him?
Yes, we brought it to his attention, yes, many times after the fact. And all he could say to us was there wasn't enough evidence to continue with the charges against the victim's father, so there was nothing he could do as a prosecutor to move the case forward. And that's been his only justification. And as we asked him, well, why didn't you say anything to us about it? He said, I didn't see any reason to say anything to you about it. I didn't see what pertinence it had to your case, which is baffling to us.
It is all a bunch of baloney, because the reason he did not bring those things up, he knows fully well we would have told him to bring that up in trial. We would have told him to bring that up as a cross-examination, because the victim's father was the first person to testify, and testifying with incriminating things, testifying saying that he was a witness to destruction of property. He was present during destruction of property. So our lawyer deliberately didn't tell us that because he knew that we would have told him to bring up this man's past criminal history in this trial. You know, he's been accused of murder, and within that Italian case, they end up killing one of the guys that's involved in that case, and then another guy goes to prison for it, but ends up getting released later. You know, this gentleman has been accused of rape and all sorts of things, and our lawyer did not want to bring those things up after he knows fully well this man was in the news doing slander on our name, slander on our image that my brother created in Pelora. You know, within all of those interviews, those news interviews, they deliberately did not go into downtown Pelora, into the center of Pelora, where my brother and our family frequently go. They did all of those interviews up in the community where the family is. So it skews everything. It skews everything. You know, if you look at some of the interviews, the girlfriend is not crying. You know, in one of the interviews, the girlfriend says that we were best friends, that she doesn't fathom why we would do something like this. She don't think we would do something like this. Then in the second interview, she goes and say, man, we had to leave that farm because John wanted us to treat him like a king. You know, he didn't want to pay us. Like a complete flip. One interview, sympathetic for our situation, and this is in the news. Second interview, she's trying to cry. She's trying to force some kind of emotion that she does not have. Because due to her doing what she's done, I would not be surprised if she was involved or she knows the parties that is involved in the deaths of these two guys. You know, because what is she gaining from doing all of this?
Since sentencing, you now have been imprisoned altogether for 4 years and 8 months. I think it's important that we talk about how the American government has completely turned their backs on you. Correct? Could you say that?
I wouldn't say that, because we are now. This is the first time from us appealing to DC Rob and going on his platform was the first time we went outside of the embassy to appeal to the American government for help. Since we have done that, we have gotten return calls from senators, from state representatives, saying that they're looking into our situation. Now, I don't know what that means, but they said that they're looking into our situation. When we speak to the embassy here, they're saying, you know, you need to sign your Privacy Act for this senator, this Privacy Act for this representative. Yes, we are getting the calls. Yes, we so the detriment to our situation, we should have did this at the beginning, and we possibly would not be here now. But the information we was getting at the beginning was that if we do media, we would be locked up. You know, so now that we're locked up, we're like, hey, to get out of here, we have to do media, because in America, no one knows. So right now, America is
are starting to act, but previously the embassy was being very political with us. We don't want to interfere with a foreign country's government. There's not much you can do. We want you guys to have the best lawyer that you guys are comfortable with, but we can't say who you should use. So the embassy was walking a very thin line of they can't interfere, but they're quote unquote helping us. But the first half, nearly 4 years, as my brother said, the embassy did not interject. They did not help. They were present at our trial. They witnessed the issues that occurred throughout our trial. And as we pointed it out to them, they said, you need to bring it up with your lawyer. If you're not comfortable with what your lawyer does, you should change your lawyer. We made it clear to the embassy that our passports were stolen and that the victim's family were in possession of our passports. They said it would be necessary for our lawyers to make a complaint through the Ecuadorian government and then make a complaint to the U.S. Embassy about it. But on their part, they could not do anything without our lawyers being the first ones to act. So it's been a situation of the embassy just saying, we can't touch what's going on because this is a foreign country. As my brother stated, once we got in contact with DC Rob and his interview got out, we were made aware of other steps, other processes, other routes to take. And since then, the senators that we've reached out to have been helpful. The congressmen we've reached out to have been helpful. The councilmen we've reached out to have been helpful. We don't know to what extent they will be helpful, but they have said that they're aware of our situation, they're reviewing our situation, they're taking calls from concerned Americans that have become aware of our situation. Now we're waiting to see what they will do. Since they have said that they've become aware, the embassy has become more proactive in our current situation, especially with this year being the deadliest year in history within the Ecuadorian prison system, with over 250 murders this year within the prison system itself.
I was going to ask, how is your safety? Do you guys feel safe in the prison? How are the conditions right now where you're at?
The safety here is not good. It's very bad. You have to remind you, people are walking around with firearms. This is not like people walking around with a toothbrush, shank, or knife. We're talking about guys got guns in here, and we're not talking about small homemade guns. We're talking about assault rifles, AK-47s, MP7s, grenades, Glocks, with 100-round drums.
Now, what people are going to ask is, how are inmates able to have these types of weapons inside of a prison?
The corruption.
It's everything is money. We can send you articles of the massacres that have occurred at the prison we're at and at the other federal prisons within the country, but everything is money. Just a few weeks ago, they found a guard coming in with over 100 rounds of 9mm ammunition. They've caught guards smuggling in shotguns. So they've caught police smuggling in grenades. They've caught military officials smuggling in grenades. This is a war zone within four walls.
You can't escape it. You know, it's everything is at a boiling point, because what happens is whatever takes place on the streets, reactions inside of here. So let's say 2-3 o'clock in the morning, somebody important dies on the streets. That kicks off a war inside of here.
A power struggle.
You see, so it's what is taking place in Ecuador. They are emulating the same things that the cartel of Mexico and Colombia are doing. They're trying to get a complete control of the drug trade and the selling of the drug. So within the prisons, if one person die on the street, 15 people die inside of here. And then all of the 15 people that die are not, let's say, gang members. It's just you're on the wrong unit. You live in the wrong cell. So, for example, if you're in our cell, if you look at our cell right now, I'm going to give you a little glimpse of our cell. This is bed 1, this is bed 2, right? And then as you look up, there's 4 more beds. So there's 6 people per cell, right? So if I'm an enemy of someone, I cause the life of everyone in the cell. So when the people come in for me, they just don't kill me. They kill everyone in the cell who don't have anything to do with it. Because what happens is, it's the guilty by association. I don't know your history. I may know that you're a gang member, but I don't know that you're that much involved. And I don't have a choice on choosing my cell. Today, the inmates come and say, man, you got to move over here. You can't fight it. The guards have no control inside of here.
So essentially, the prisoners run the prison in Ecuador.
Not essentially. They do run the prison.
They run the prisons in Ecuador.
They run the prisons.
The guards have no say. The prisoners walk around with weapons, guns, firearms, grenades. The guards walk around with mace. The guards don't come on the units unless the inmates give them permission to. The inmates have the keys to the cells. The inmates have the keys to the units. So if the police or the guards come and the inmates do not want to let them in, the police would have to completely saw off the doors. The inmates control all access within the prison. If you want to go to medical, you have to go through the inmates. You don't ask a guard, you ask an inmate, can I go to see the doctor? I feel sick. The inmates have complete control.
For anybody watching this interview so far, What message do you want to give to any American that will be traveling abroad or who is thinking of possibly moving to Latin America or any other country abroad? Do you have any advice for anybody that would be doing that in your situation?
One thing I would say, if you're planning to move abroad, do not make it permanent. When you choose where you want to go, do not make your first pick your final choice. So if you come and you say, man, I'm in love with Cuenca, I'm about to get me something right here in Cuenca. Don't do that. Get to see what's more around. Make sure you know the language of the country, right? That is the most important thing. Know the language. The way in America, if you don't speak the language and the way the American government caters to foreigners that don't speak the language, do not expect that to happen here in these third world countries, in these Latin America. When you go to court in America, if you speak Chinese, they just tell you pick up the phone. They have somebody there that can speak Chinese that can translate. That does not happen here. You will not have that luxury here. You have to also take into consideration that corruption is big. It's big. I'm talking about corruption from if you want to cut the line in the bank, because the bank line is all the way outside of the bank, from corruption to the police. The police just set up roadblocks wherever they want to. They pull you over. They search you. They try to take your passport, and then you got to pay to get your passport back. So these are the little things that you have to take into consideration of the corruption within these third world countries. People taking the law into their own hands to make money for themselves because they're not making a lot of money. So when people are moving to these places, take into consideration to speak the language. Always keep in mind that there's corruption, that everything is $1 to move faster or to get something out of your way. And the next major thing is, I would tell somebody, if you're coming out here to blog every day, take videos of yourself every day, put surveillance cameras within your home. Try to do surveillance cameras that people will not know it's a surveillance camera. So if something bad does happen to you, you have a catalog of blogging, video blogging, pictures, all of these things that's sitting in the cloud, that if they tried to destroy all your evidence, you still have it present somewhere.
How can people help you?
Right now, the biggest way people can help us is by reaching out to our Maryland senators, Senator Ben Cardin and Senator Chris Van Hollen, and also reaching out to our Maryland Congressman, David Trone, and reaching out on our behalf, stating that American citizens want to know what is going on with our current case, what is going on in our appeal process, and they want our congressmen and senators to assist to American citizens that have almost been abandoned abroad.
And to push the Levinson Act. When everyone is calling, you don't have to just call the senators in our state. Call the senators in your state. If you're California, Texas, wherever you are, get in contact with your representatives and everything in your state, because there's a federal law that was passed, an act that was called the Levinson Act. And this act was put in place for hostages and people illegally detained abroad. It was originally created for a gentleman who was a journalist that was kidnapped by terrorists in Iraq or Iran, and they killed him before he got a chance to come back home. And I believe it's Obama, with Biden being present, signed off on this Levinson Act. Since Biden has been in office, he hasn't brought not one person home. In our situation and other situations, they have at least 30 people in different countries that is being detained against their will. And we're asking Americans to don't forget about your family members and friends and associates that's abroad. Even though you don't understand why we move abroad or why would we leave such a great America, don't let that stop you from helping us to have justice, to help us get us our freedom. Our decision in life and our path in life doesn't have to be exact with yours. just look at our situation and see that it's wrong. Because I see when people say, oh man, what you doing in Iraq? What you doing in Afghanistan? What you doing in Ecuador? What you doing? Why can't we be there? That's a terrible mindset. Why can't, imagine if you start to say that to each other in America, then that's bad. What were you doing over there in that part of your state? You shouldn't be there. You're from this city. You shouldn't be. Like, where do we draw the line? My thing is, once you have a passport, that is a luxury that America gives us that a lot of countries do not have the privilege of having, to get to travel. So why would I not take advantage of that great privilege of using my passport to see the world, to go live someplace, to go and experience something different? So I want all Americans to, when they look at this situation, people are not just Americans, Canadians, Europeans, Australians, everyone that is looking at this situation to understand, don't be deterred to go live abroad and travel. This is your life to live with your family member. Just remember to tell your family members, like, hey man, don't forget about me when I go over to these places. Don't think because I'm going there, I'm abandoning you. I'm just trying to do something different. And don't abandon me because I'm doing something different, you know? Continue to support me, continue to pray for me, continue to love me, you know? Just don't be like, oh man, you went out there to live the fancy life. No, I'm just wanting to do something different. And that shouldn't be wrong.
Knowing everything you know now, would you still go to Ecuador? And would you still have moved to Ecuador? Would you have bought the land? Would you do things differently?
Yes, I would have still come to Ecuador, but I would have made myself more aware of the laws. I would have made better contacts within the police force, with lawyers, within the judiciary system, dealing with prosecutors. I made my presence known amongst the people within the town. They knew me, they knew my reputation, but to the higher level of the judiciary system, they didn't know who I was. And that made it easy for this gentleman to go and create a narrative within the media that people saw and were able to run with because they didn't know who I was. I don't think I came here with bad intentions. My family didn't come here with bad intentions. We saw the value and the desire that I had and the dream that I had to build something here. So my intentions were good. Was I naive? Yes. Was I ignorant to some of the laws and understanding of the judiciary system? Very much so. I would have made myself much more aware of how the processes worked out here. I'd have dealt with more lawyers from the beginning to protect myself, to protect my property, to protect my family, to protect my wife, to protect my brother. But I would have still come out here. If I had to do it all over again, I would come back to Ecuador. I would purchase the property all over again. I would just be more in the know at this point on the legal end, from dealing not only within the Ecuadorian judicial system, but I would have also, from the beginning, made congressmen and senators know that an American is out here, an American is going through the right legal processes to purchase a property, to attain a residency visa within the country, to go through the loopholes of different background checks within the U.S., within Ecuador. I would have made U.S. representatives aware of my presence within the country, so they would have been more aware and of anything that may have happened to me, be it this type of situation or be it any detriment that may have come to me or my family, that they would have been on top of the situation from the beginning.
Are you both still hopeful that one day you will be released from this Ecuadorian prison?
Yes, definitely hopeful. At this point that we are at right now is at revision. We did 2-3 appeals already prior, but in those appeals, you cannot open up the case. You just can only speak about what took place. Right now, where we at with revision, it's an open book. All the evidence that wasn't tested can be tested now. All of the evidence that was contaminated and all of that can be taken out, and a whole new trial is starting all over. The only issue is that we may not be present to see what takes place, that we won't be able to give testimony. So the main thing that we want from everyone is to put pressure on Ecuador for us. Like, the world is watching. If you guys make these bad decisions on these gentlemen's case, this is going to interfere with you guys' income in Ecuador, on tourism and things of that nature. Because if these gentlemen can't get justice, who's to say that this can't happen to anybody else? When it has happened, Italians, they have a girl from Texas that was in the same area that we were in Macas. She died from drinking ayahuasca. The family's in America, but the person was charged and then let free. Because when the lady died, he didn't take her to the hospital, and then she had bruises and possibly went under some other things. I'm not too familiar with the case, but anyone that is not from this country, your rights is 50%. It's not 100%, because you do not have family here to fight for you. This is a situation of if a dead body is found in the street and no one comes to claim that dead body, the prosecutor is not looking for the killer. Someone has to come and say, hey, that person is dead. That is my family member, my friend. We need to find out who kills him. Now the prosecutor does an investigation. So the way they treat foreigners here is like, if you lose your life here and you don't have a family member to call and check up on you, it's done. Like for my brother's situation, what this family is known of doing, they could have burned the farm down and done something to my brother while we were all in the States. We wouldn't have heard from him because the signal's not good. We would have just came down here, and then we would have had to pick up the pieces on how do we start a case, who do we accuse, and he would have just lost his life. No one would have went to prison for it. The destruction of our farm. We brought cases against that family, against that community. They have not arrested not one person for the destruction, the killing of the animals, or the burning of the place, or the robbing, anything. We have washing machines, speakers, refrigerators, big refrigerator coolers for beer, because we had a club there. We have receipts for these things. We have on record, because our father, he's on top of that because he's assisting us to get our life together out here. We tell the prosecutor, we have these things. Just go up into that community. On the receipt, it will have the serial number. They don't want to do it. Everyone tells us, get your freedom first, then worry about that later. But if we can get criminal charges brought against the people who destroyed the property, that goes to and coincides with our murder case to say, man, you tampered with evidence. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you want to see justice done for your family member? Don't you understand the legal system? That if you burn this down, it destroys the whole case? Why would you do that? That makes me believe that you have something to do with the death of this gentleman. You should be charged for murder. Because why would you go and burn down the place? The main issue that needs to be checked within our situation is the Morona Santiago Macas judicial system. Issue 1. We asked for change of jurisdiction due to the indigenous intimidation to the media. We were denied that right, which is a right that we can have. We were denied that by these same 3 judges that was in our trial. That judicial system in Macas needs to be revised. The prosecutor, throughout our trial, every prosecutor was transferred or fired. The first prosecutor, Sebastian Rodriguez, fired. The second prosecutor who took on our drug case, we won the drug case, transferred. Cannot be involved with the murder case. The murder case was a woman prosecutor. We end up finding out that she is the stepdaughter of one of the judges, which is a contamination. After that situation, this woman, after she gets the guilty verdict, this woman is promoted to the head of the prosecutor's office. So this Marcus region has to be investigated. It's a small knit community with a lot of corruption taking place, right? Because what happens is, in this Marcus region, it's 80% indigenous. The other 20% is considered, what they use here, colonial. That 20% of colonial is in political power. And they are doing a lot of under the table, dirty business. And I think that is the reason why the victim's father had them intimidated, because he knows their track record. That here it is, they didn't take money from us, but he knows who they have taken money from. You see what I'm saying? And they would lose their jobs and tax. You can get locked up here much faster for tax invasion than murder. Because in this country, once they find out that you are have political power and you're stealing money, they're coming for you. They want to lock you up fast. Boom, boom, boom. Every single president in this country has to run from this country, because as soon as they lose the election, they say that they were stealing money, that they're corrupt. So the Morona Santiago Marcus region needs to be investigated. The 3 judges that was on our trial need to be investigated. The prosecutor that did the murder trial needs to be investigated. The head of the judge's office in Morona Santiago needs to be investigated. The Sebastian Rodriguez, who was the original prosecutor, needs to be investigated. Stalin Samarenda, who is the father of the victim, he is known for Sansas, which is known for chopping heads and shrinking it and selling it to American museums and European museums. This man needs to be investigated, because throughout our legal process, he has contaminated, manipulated, and intimidated the whole process. Contaminated evidence, intimidated judges, and has destroyed evidence. He's on video on the farm with his family, destroying evidence. He's on video confessing that he does not know when his son went missing. He's on video saying all of the damages done to his son's body before autopsy was done. This man needs to be investigated.
Why do you think this happened to you too? Why did they come after you? What is the motive behind the victim's father to come after you guys so strong? What was the purpose of all this, in your opinion?
It was all money. It was all money. If you go and you look this gentleman up, all he does is GoFundMe and money raising schemes, Ponzi schemes. He has had people before try to assist him to raise money, and they have stepped away because they have realized that he has a lot of shady past, that he's been accused of murder, that he is being investigated for murder. So people have stepped back from him. This gentleman is money hungry. He is power hungry. Ever since we've been in this situation, he's started to try to become political. He's tried to run for mayor. It's all about money. It all derives from money. Somebody does anything to my family, I would not ask for money to drop the charges. I would want you to rot in prison to help. The money doesn't do anything for me.
Any last thoughts, any last words that you would like to say to anybody that's listening and watching?
Yes, to stay continuously updated on our situation, people can check out our website, justiceecuador.com, as well as you can go to our Instagram, justice.ecuador on Instagram, and as well as on Twitter, justice.ecuador. Just to continue to get updated information about how our appeal is going.
Other than that, just please take a 5 minutes out of your day. If you have the opportunity, reach out to your local senator, reach out to your local congressman, and just ask about the Stephenson brothers, John Stephenson and Ronell Stephenson, and ask them what they're doing to make sure we receive a fair trial now that we're in revision.
And to push the Levinson Act, because if they can push the Levinson Act, just due to the information that has been presented to the Congress, to senators, to all the important parties, we qualify for the Levinson Act. Due process was denied in our trial throughout our situation. Exculpatory evidence was damaged, like so many things that was in violation, that we qualify for the Levinson Act, that we do not have to go through this revision. We do not have to go through this appeal process. They can just let us go, put us on the plane, and be back to America. You know, the attachment to this country, we love it and all of that, but the most important thing is our freedom and our safety. And right now, we are not safe because of this prison situation. We don't know when something's going to kick off, and we want to get back to our family. My brother has a daughter. I have a son. We're trying to get back to them. You know, that we've been away from them way, way too long.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time. I'm going to end the recording right here.